In 1933, the government made it illegal to own gold, and the gold price was $20 per ounce. They went back to every American citizen and said it's illegal for you to own gold, but we're going to buy it back at $20.67 per ounce. Everybody thought that sounded like a good deal, and then right after that, they revalued gold at $35 an ounce, and they're about to do it again, except this time it's different. This time, they're not confiscating it, they're simply revaluing it. And in this video, I'm going to break down my gold price predictions for 2026, and this is not based on speculation. This is based on intentional strategic decisions that are being made. I'm going to get specific and tell you about all of these things that are happening in the United States and in the world that are leading up to the gold price surging, along with silver to follow that. So we're going to be talking about both of those today. I'm going to be talking to you about what I buy, how I'm able to get an extremely amazing deal on my gold and silver from dealers. And as a matter of fact, I'm at a dealer right now, but this is only where I store my gold and silver. I don't buy from them because I get wholesale pricing that you won't find online. I'm going to tell you how you can get access to that in just a little bit. I'm going to give you my gold price prediction and silver for 2026, and not based on speculation, but backed by fact. And we're going to dive into some of the big names that are stocking up on gold and silver that you have maybe not known about or heard about, and you've not known that they're doing these things. So we're going to break that all down in this video. So let's just do a quick recap on the price of gold through the years. Gold was always regulated at a 15-to-1 ratio through history, okay? And then we faced currency debasement, which the Romans did to their denarius in the 2nd century, the Spaniards did the 15th through the 17th centuries, and in the United States, we did the same thing, okay? For example, half dollars were silver all the way until 1965. And in 1965, they went from 90% silver down to 40% silver. And then by 1970, that marked the end of silver in any of our coins. In 1971, we go entirely off the gold standard thanks to a decision from Richard Nixon. And then shortly after that, we become the petrodollar. In 1974, the government finally says, hey, you can own whatever gold that you want as an individual, and we got rid of that. Now we moved into hyperinflation from 1974 all the way through current, essentially printing more money into existence and loaning out more money, going into more debt, and arriving to a point today where we cannot inflate our way out of the problem. Here enters the soaring price of gold and silver and what we're likely to continue seeing in 2025 going on into 2026. The US dollar is down 9% for the 2025 year, but gold is up 70%. Silver, for example, was $31 an ounce at the end of January of 2025. It's $60 an ounce as I'm making this video. It is almost doubled. Now, why would that be? Because in the last 3 years, world reserve banks, central governments, the Federal Reserve, have hoarded more gold and imported more than any other time in the past. As a matter of fact, the United States government owns more gold than any other government or central bank combined. And why would that be? Well, because we have all of this debt that we can't seem to figure out how to pay back. Inflation has stopped working for us, so we realize that can't happen anymore. Nobody trusts the US dollar anymore, which is why the BRICS nations have formed and why there's other monetary systems in place that will not allow for US participation, EU, or the UK. They're tired of our dollar, they're tired of Western civilization. So what they have done is created monetary systems that have annexed the US dollar, annexed us from being able to conduct trade, and then they have become gold-backed and used other currencies to transact, entirely backed by gold. Over here in the US, we have recognized this at a federal level and realized, hey, our dollar is losing more value year over year over year. We printed tons during COVID. We printed tons with EIDL loans. And now we've reached a point where we cannot pay back or down our own debt with our own dollar. So what do we have? We have silver and we have gold. So what we're doing at a central level is we're allowing gold to go to the moon. It has been intentionally suppressed for decades. And now the plan, okay, and this is coming straight from the Trump administration. They don't want to put it on the news, but I have information from people that President Trump has nominated in his office for certain political positions saying, hey, low key, here's what the deal is. We want to allow gold to go to the moon because if it's $4,200 an ounce as I'm making this video, and it's been suppressed so heavily that it should be worth $6,000 an ounce, $10,000 an ounce, and in some AI math-driven models, people like Jim Rickards have shown that gold mathematically should be worth $24,000 an ounce. So when it's worth $4,200 right now, what's the play? The government needs to let it go to the moon so they can take the trillions of dollars of debt and go, hey, you know what? Good news. We're paying it all off in silver and gold. Here you go. What does that mean for you? If you're riding that wave with them, you're gonna be one of the ones that creates the wealth here. So rather than going into the stock market and buying silver ETFs or gold ETFs, where you don't actually own the physical asset, that's not gonna be part of the benefit here. That's not gonna be the play. That's not gonna be the win. That's not gonna be what appreciates. You need to own the physical gold and silver. How do you get a good deal on it? How do you buy it? What do you buy? What's the split? I like to do about 60-40 split, 60% silver, 40% gold. Reason being, it's nice to own a lot of something. You can still pick up silver for 60 bucks, right? Well, gold, if you want an ounce, you're gonna pay $4,200. And not everybody can just go spend money and get an ounce of gold week after week after week after week. So I do a little bit of a 60-40 split. Here's how I break it down. If you're on a little bit lower of a budget, you go in and you maybe buy a couple dozen ounces of silver buffaloes, silver eagles, Canadian maple leafs, British Britannias, or Austrian Philharmonics. Those are great. They're all gonna be around the price per ounce of silver. Now gold, you can do whole gold eagles, gold buffaloes, things of that nature, but again, you're gonna pay north of $4,000 an ounce for that. If you need to do what's called fractional purchasing, you can get quarter ounce eagles, you can even get 10th ounce eagles, where you're paying 1,200 bucks for a quarter ounce on today's rates, or maybe $400 for a 10th ounce, or something along those lines. And that allows you to start divvying up, get a little bit of both. Now, this year, we actually had silver outpace gold in terms of its appreciation. Silver has now been reclassified as a critical mineral, thus really putting in a floor to silver. Imagine it this way. Let's say that this is the current price of silver, okay? And now, because there has been a reevaluation, classifying silver as a critical mineral, what that really effectively just did is it kind of put a floor to silver. So even if it has little dips, it can't really be worth a whole lot less. Here's silver now, here's this new hypothetical floor that has now gone in place that's likely to only make silver continue going up in value. The next thing that you need to know about silver before I get into my price predictions for 2026 is that silver is coming into its 6th year of a supply deficit. It has utility use. Other than just being a store of value, other than just being an inflation hedge, your silver is the best conductor of electricity, better than copper, okay? We use literally a monster box of silver in Tomahawk cruiser missiles alone. That is 500 ounces of silver, almost $30,000 worth of silver are in a Tomahawk cruiser missile. We use it in semiconductors, medical equipment, solar panels, batteries, hybrid technology, and military equipment. We need it, okay? And we're not able to extract enough out of the ground. So it's kind of like Bitcoin, for example, where if you own Bitcoin, there's a limited supply. So it comes down to supply and demand. Well, the demand is there in silver, but the supply is limited. And technology to continue extracting silver out of the ground is not keeping up pace with what we can get out of the ground. So we will reach a point where silver continues to become even more critical, and whoever owns it is the one that's gonna have the wealth. So you can let it be the government, or you can get a little slice of the pie as well. If you're loving this video so far, make sure to subscribe if you're brand new to my channel, and tap that little notification bell so you can stay updated on all the videos that I drop. Everything that we discuss here, I personally do and invest in. You're gonna hear me talk about paying no taxes because I invest in oil wells. You're gonna hear me talk about 2 to 3xing my net worth with passive real estate that I don't have to manage. You're gonna hear me talk about tax strategies. I do all of this through my own company called the Capitalist Network, which I included a link in the description. You can check it out. We help people get into gold and silver. We help them get lines of credit against it. We help them go into cash flowing assets where they can 2 to 3x their net worth. And I'm in the exact same deals that I recommend. My money's parked there right alongside everybody that we help. I am in those deals. So now let's talk about gold price predictions for 2026. First of all, I'm gonna share with you some stuff that Andy Schechtman brought up with me. He was on with my members and I for about 75 minutes the other day. And he said, look, if I were to bet, gun to my head, 6 beers in my stomach, it would be $6,000 an ounce on gold by the end of 2026 and $100 an ounce on silver. This is coming directly from Andy Schechtman at Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin has transacted over $11 billion in bullion sales, and they're one of the only licensed resellers of the US Mint, which is an appointed position. There's only 27 of those. He's one of my partners inside the Capitalist Network. He came on for 75 minutes and just dropped bombs about silver and about gold and where we're going. And he said, you know what? We have already already decided we are going to lose our status as the world reserve currency. We're done with it. We realize that we have inflated our way to where we're at now. We can't do it anymore, so what do we have to do? We have to put tariffs up, which are essentially sanctions. We have to bring manufacturing back to increase our gross domestic product. We have to pay our debt down, let gold go to the moon, and pay the debt back with that. The US dollar is no longer. It is a dying breed. It will be here very short-lived, and gold will go to the moon because we are allowing it to do so, no longer suppressing it. He said $6,000 an ounce by the end of 2026 if you were to bet on it for gold, and $100 an ounce of silver. But now let's talk about the Department of War, let's talk about BlackRock, and let's talk about the Pentagon. 75 miles north of where I sit here in Eagle, Idaho, is the Stibnite mine. Trump recognized it as one of the key mines to start extracting minerals out of the ground in 2026. At its height, it will employ 600 miners and employees every single day. Now, there is some of the highest grade, easiest to extract gold deposits at that mine, silver deposits at that mine, and the Department of War and Pentagon, as well as BlackRock, are invested in it. Now let's pause for a second. Why would you not own the same assets that BlackRock physically owns, not stocks, but the physical asset? Why would you not own assets that the Department of War owns and that the Pentagon owns? Because all of these entities that I just mentioned are invested in the Stibnite mine. And you'd think, why is the Department of War and the Pentagon invested in a gold mine? Well, because it's not just gold. It also has 140 million pounds of antimony, which is needed for making military equipment and weapons. And to this point, we didn't know that antimony existed in North America. 90% of its trade is controlled by Tajikistan and Russia, and we import it. Now we have equivalent to all the antimony that we used during the Vietnam and Korean War, all sitting in some bedrock 75 miles north of Boise, Idaho. Okay, so they're invested in it, and BlackRock comes out and says, in 2025, we believe gold could probably hit $4,000 an ounce, and we hit 4,400. And then they said, we could see 5,500, 6,000 an ounce. This is BlackRock. JP Morgan said the same thing. Why would you say that? Well, you could say that if you're the very ones invested in the most profitable mine to extract gold and silver out of the ground in the lower 48 states. That is the Stibnite mine in Yellow Pine, Idaho. You can look it up, and I've included some resources in the description. Which leads me to the next point. So we've established some very critical key reasons on why gold is going to go to the moon, because we are getting rid of the US dollar. We're no longer going to be the world reserve currency. We've established it from credible sources like Andy Schectman. We've established that JP Morgan thinks this, BlackRock thinks this, the Department of War thinks this, and the Pentagon thinks this. We already know that Trump said, hey, we need to mine this mine. It is one of the most critical mines in the entire United States out of 10 that have been selected right now. For all these reasons, gold going to the moon. We have also identified that gold will be needed to pay off our debts because we can't use a dying dollar. So where does it go next? Guys like Jim Rickards have been hired by the government to go, you know what should it be at? Theoretically, what should the ceiling of gold be? Where should it actually be valued at because it's been suppressed? And one of his answers, $24,000 an ounce. These are all the reasons why to invest in gold. In a second, I'll tell you how you can get some pretty crazy deals on gold and silver. But to recap, if I were to bet, I said gold was gonna hit $4,000 an ounce. In 2025, it exceeded that. So I'm gonna say again and back up a lot of these guys, incredible sources and people far smarter than me in the industry that I get my gold and silver from, that I get a lot of my intel from, straight from the source, straight from the top. $6,000 an ounce on gold, $100 an ounce on silver by the end of 2026. So you're probably asking, how can you get access to extremely good deals on gold and silver? Well, every time you buy, there's a premium. And that premium is essentially the little markup that the dealers, the JM Bullion, Money Metals, all these different suppliers, that's where they make their margin, right? And so when you work with a licensed reseller of the US Mint, it's almost like doing business directly with the mint yourself. You're gonna have a lower markup, you're gonna have a more competitive price. But here's what Miles Franklin does for us. Miles Franklin is owned by Andy Schectman. I own the Capitalist Network. Miles Franklin partnered with the Capitalist Network and said, hey, every member of the Capitalist Network, we will give off-market special rate sheets that we change out every single Monday, and we're gonna give your members, friends, and family discounts. I've included a link to the Capitalist Network below. Here's what it is in essence. We help you build wealth like a capitalist. We provide you the mentorship, we provide you the real estate deals that I'm invested in, the oil deals that I'm invested in, we provide you the tax help, the CPAs, we are the family office on steroids. Now, regardless of if you make $80K a year $800,000 a year, or $8 million a year, and you have a massive tax liability and want to multiply your wealth, start leveraging gold and silver, getting a line of credit in it, going into cash flowing assets, and truly multiplying your wealth, we provide all of that under one roof. Not a course, not just the how-to, but we actually help you get it done and across the finish line. We help you get access to the same prices I pay on my gold and silver, learn how to store it, get the line of credit, infinite banking with high early cash value, institutional grade life policies. Everything I personally do to multiply my wealth by 2 to 3x every few years is all inside TCN. And when it comes to gold and silver, we get friends and family wholesale pricing. So what Andy does is anybody that I bring to him, I say, hey, here's my member, here's Bob. Bob wants to start stocking up on some Eagles, some Maple Leafs, some gold, some silver, whatever. Give him the deal. And we have an off-market, off-radar sheet that goes specifically directly to my inbox every single Monday so that we can get in at the most competitive pricing available on the best inventory and the best quality product available. Hope you guys have loved this video. If you have any questions, drop a comment. I reply to all my comments. Subscribe. Make sure to check out TCN, and I'll see you in the next video.